Hey, Christopher Yax here, and today I want to talk about a really light subject, what we call the 5 steps to forgiveness. So this is, it's not a light topic at all. It's not a small talk topic at all, but we're going to go there. And so, and the reason is that it's the hardest work, but it's the most valuable work. I know this from personal experience. For me, the biggest resentment I've held in my life has been towards my dad. I had this perspective in my life that what he did was an affront to me, and that made me a victim for a good portion of my life. A victim, and he was the villain. And that was something I just could never reconcile. And it took really, so I remember the moment I knew, and I actually had the experience of how much pain I was in. It was, I believe it was my 18th birthday. And he was notoriously bad about remembering birthdays. But typically it was a week or two afterwards, he'd be like, "Hey, Christopher, happy birthday." And I was like, "Hey, it was 2 weeks ago." He'd be like, "Oh, that's right, sorry." But my 18th birthday, he called me the day before. And as I saw the phone, I was like, wait a second, this, actually, I didn't see the phone because it was the rotary phone. We didn't have a cell phone at the time. So I answered, it was the day before, answered, and he was like, "Okay, Christopher." And that was when I thought, I was like, oh man, it's March 24th. He remembered. He's a day early, but I'll give him a break. And his very next sentence was, "Can I talk to your brother, John?" And I was like, yeah, here he is. And I felt it, and I was like, I'm gonna cuss in this one, excuse me, and pardon my French. "You motherfucker." I was so pissed off. But I had a moment in my anger, my rage at the moment. I was like, are you kidding me? You can't, you brought me into this world and you can't remember my birthday? And I had a moment of almost standing outside of myself and seeing the anger I held. And I knew then, I was like, I can't hold on to this. This is hurting me. This is killing me. Slowly. Every year, my birthday comes around and it's killing me. And so it was the first step that I knew that I had to take to start coming to grips with the need for me to let go, to forgive. And so it took, I was 18 at that point. It wasn't till, 25, so 7 years later, until I really had the conversation that needed to have. And so it was a lot of rigmarole of I need to, and I would try to reach out and I wouldn't do it. I'd do it half-heartedly and he wouldn't be there for me. And it was this process that it was a struggle. And so in that process, what I realized is that when I look back at it, after I'd had the conversation, after we had reconciled it, and by the way, I love him to death. He's a great person. We have a wonderful relationship. My children love him, and he is who he is. And I've made peace with him in that sense because that forgiveness was for me. That's a little sidebar conversation. But the point is, what I realized and what John and I worked through is of this framework that we realized that we went through, but we just took a lot of time and it was a lot of trial and error. And that's what I want to talk about today is this, what we're calling the 5 steps to forgiveness. And the first is a belief that the universe is working to help you in this life. So this is what beliefs are all about. They're not necessarily based in fact, right? It's a belief. In fact, studies show that when someone has a belief and evidence, reality, evidence that has shown the belief to be untrue, people will dismiss it and just say, I don't care about that. I'm going to believe what I want to believe. So you have the option here to look at this and say, well, that's bullshit. The universe does not have my back. I don't care what you say at this point. And at that point, I would just pause or swipe left and not listen to me anymore. But if you're still on board, the universe is working to help you in life. This was the first step that I had to come to terms with in that process because I realized that I just looked at how I was living, who I was living with, and the reality of my life. At that point, I had this wonderful relationship with my brothers and sisters. We were bonded. I have the tightest knit relationship with them because of the actions of my father. I had this beautiful relationship, this heartfelt relationship with my passion and my desire to help people overcome these mental afflictions and these emotional afflictions through the process of yoga because of how what I experienced growing up. And so all of a sudden I looked at it and I was like, wait a second, I have a really good life right now. I have this resentment, but I have this really good life right now. And I have to blame him effectively for all the hardship that he caused for myself and my brothers, but also for all the good that's in there, because I am living the way I'm living because of his actions, not in spite of his actions. And what that led me to realize is that, man, even with all of that, while while it hurt and it hurt our family, the universe was working to help me. And it was just I didn't need it's a belief system that I hold strongly to now, but I just had to look at the evidence of my life in that moment, that the person I was a function of him. He was a part of my reality. Even if I resented him, I had to realize that, guess what? He's a part of the beauty of the life that I'm living. And so this is the next step, is all right, if that's true, and this is really important, if this is the foundation, if that's true, then the next steps are more willing, you're more willing to take the next step, if that's true, because then the next step is to forgive yourself for the little stuff. The things that you held on to that, it's frivolous. It doesn't really mean anything. For me, it's when I, with my daughters, if I lose my temper too quickly and I yell and I get emotional, and then after the fact, I'm no, that was I was overdone. I didn't need to go there. I didn't need to get that emotional about something that was just silly. In that, okay, I forgive myself. Because even then, if the universe is working in my life to help me, then my reaction, if I view it symbolically, was a process for me to see where I went wrong and then to correct it in the future. And then if that holds true and I do this stuff enough, if I forgive myself for the little things enough, when I get upset at a red light and I forget to appreciate my wife and we have a little spat and I let her leave with reluctantly kissing her and I'm not fully wholehearted, then I can stop for a moment and be oh no, this is the universe is working to help me in this. And that happened, and I can frame it, I can create the reason as it helps me evolve into a more conscious, open-hearted person. And when I do that enough, I've now gained the traction, right? I've gotten more experience in forgiving myself for the little things. And then I can take it to that next level. I can forgive myself for the big stuff. I can forgive myself. And so it has to start with us, because if I'm not willing to forgive myself for the little things and then take it to that next level for the bigger things. When I was younger, I was at a party, and this is in my teenage years, and a kid came up, a friend of mine. He was it was just a bag of this thing, and I didn't even know what it was. He was hey, take this out to the car. And he said it in a way I kind of knew I should not be doing it. And then I did. I took it out of the car, and all of a sudden I come to find out that he had stolen a PlayStation from the party we were at. And I conspired to help. That's a bigger thing. This whole, the fallout of that was pretty enormous back then, and it crushed my soul to be a part of something like that. And that's a bigger thing for me that I literally, for years held on to, that I had to then, it came to my consciousness in this whole process, and I was yeah, that's not helping me. Okay, let's look at this. The universe is working to help me in this life. Right? And don't get me wrong, this isn't a justification to be an asshole and be oh, the universe is just helping me to evolve consciously as I'm hurting people in my life, willfully. No, but it's we make mistakes, we're human, right? We're fallible, we're gonna stumble. But if I hold this to be true, then the way I interpret those moments will give me more light and less darkness. It'll allow me to, if nothing else, to create more light out of that darkness. And so the next level is forgive yourself for the bigger stuff. And this is hard, but what I'll say is that this forgiveness here is obviously for yourself. Let's take it to this next level. Forgive others for the little stuff. The little things, right? The little snippy comments. Someone says something and you can tell it was a jab, and but you're just okay, that's their stuff. Let me forgive them for that so that I don't hold any ill will within me. And this is what's really important about this, is forgiving others isn't for them, it's for yourself. There's a quote by Nelson Mandela, and he says that holding on to a resentment is akin to taking a teaspoon of poison every day in the hopes that someone else, that other person, will one day die. And to really look at who said that, Nelson Mandela, in the context of what he was enduring and how he was living, right? Like saying that and experiencing this while he was in prison by the very people that he was now forgiving. It's like, it is a whole other level of, really what it is forgiving others for the big stuff, right? Whatever that big stuff is, he took it to that level. But what a beautiful example of the possibility of the human spirit to let go and to forgive. But so this process, if you look at it, really, it makes a lot of sense. Let's start with this belief that maybe the universe is working to help me evolve consciously, help me see more light while we live in this experience of life that there's a lot of darkness, there's a lot of pain. It's just the nature of being in this world. There's going to be loss. We're going to lose people. We're going to lose our health. We're going to lose our youth. We're going to lose the people we love in our lives, right? Things are going to happen to us that we didn't consciously choose. Yet, I can still hold to the belief that if the universe is working for me, then maybe I can reframe the experiences in a way that don't drag me down into the darkness deeper and deeper, but allow me to see that that darkness can be reframed into light. And then I can take it to all right, then if that's the case, then I can forgive myself for the little things, and I can be lighter with myself. And then maybe there's a possibility when I do that enough, I have enough traction, I have enough experiences of forgiving myself for the little stuff, that the big stuff can be tackled. And I can let go of that stuff, right? To really free my heart up. And then maybe it's possible to forgive others for little things that they've done in my life. And then maybe it's possible to forgive others for the big stuff, like the big traumas and the big tragedies. And again, this is not, I didn't forgive my dad for him. Honestly, and I don't mean this in any other way, but for myself, I don't think he cared if I forgave him or not. He was living his life. This was his, this is what part of the beauty of what he taught me is man, he wasn't holding on to his decisions. He may have slight regrets, but when I talked to him, he was no, I didn't really have. This is my path. This is why I chose it, and I wouldn't have changed it. And I was whoa, that's man. So again, I'm not letting him off the hook for that stuff. I'm not justifying his actions, but what I'm doing is I'm letting myself off the hook. I'm freeing my heart, because the resentment I held on to, it kept a film, an ocean really, of distance between myself and the people that I love, especially when it came into the intimate relationship, with my wife. I couldn't really be with her until I let go of the pain that I was experiencing from my childhood. This is the value. It's really, this forgiveness idea is really about reclaiming your spirit from the past, being wholehearted in the life that you're living now, so that we can be as loving and as intimate and as authentic with the people that we're gifted to be with in this world for as long as we're gifted with breath. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.